Made a friend on the journey? Ask him to come in. In just a few weeks, we'll enter a Christmas season rich in tradition. On Christmas Day, you might go for a stroll, either to walk off the huge lunch you've just eaten, or to work up an appetite for the huge dinner ahead. Some of us might even try to squeeze in 2 big meals on the same day. Today's episode is not set on Christmas Day, but on the first Easter day, and it records not 1 walk, but 2. The first of these walks is from Jerusalem to Emmaus, 7 miles away. Then, after just a quick turnaround, the same people make the reverse journey back to Jerusalem. Why? The reason these 2 friends are walking away from Jerusalem at first is because Jesus has been crucified. They were his followers, and so, with Jesus' death, their dreams had died too. We'd hoped, they say, that Jesus was the one who was going to redeem Israel. We'd hoped he was the long-promised Messiah who'd set everything right. But the Messiah was supposed to judge evil regimes, not get crucified by one of them. He was supposed to end death, not be stopped by death in his tracks. To the 2 friends then, Jesus' death wasn't just a personal tragedy. Their hope was gone. They were walking away from Jerusalem because it was all over. Yet here's what happens. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. Jesus is walking with them, but they're somehow prevented from immediately identifying him. When people don't recognize us, we might wave our hands before their eyes. We might say, "Hey, it's me," not Jesus. He will reveal himself to these disciples in his own way. So, as they walk along, the 2 travelers tell Jesus all that's happened. They speak of the death of their leader and their own dashed hopes. They even speak about the tomb, reported empty. They're understandably cynical of these claims. Their hearts are broken. They won't run the risk of being disappointed again. But the resurrected Jesus is about to meet with them. It starts on the road. Jesus says, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in the scriptures concerning himself. It's remarkable. Jesus has obliterated sin and defeated death. He has an immortal, deathless body. He's burst into new life. He's the hope of the world. So, how will he reveal himself to his despairing friends? Here's the answer. Through an Old Testament Bible study. Perhaps you're thinking, well, that's disappointing. Couldn't Jesus think of a more spectacular way? But the disciples on the road didn't think it was disappointing. Listen to what they say. "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" Their hearts burned. As Jesus immerses these followers in the story of the Bible, they see the world with new eyes. Jesus shows them that the world's ultimate problem isn't the Romans, but the human heart. Then Jesus paints a picture of what must happen for forgiveness to be won and the universe to be made new. It can only be achieved by a Messiah who'll suffer, die, and rise. As Jesus opens the Old Testament in this way, the disciples' hopes are kindled and the embers of their hearts are stirred. All this, remember, is before they've even recognized Jesus. But as they begin to see that Jesus' death was no obstacle to him being the Messiah, their hearts are set on fire. Could it be true? But if Jesus actually was alive, where was he? As the disciples approach Emmaus, Jesus continues on as if he were going further, but they encourage him to share a meal with them. Then listen to what happens. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him. The lights come on. Some suggest that as Jesus breaks the bread, he draws attention to his hands, allowing his disciples to glimpse the marks of the nails. Perhaps. But when the disciples rush back to Jerusalem, they'll say that they recognize Jesus, not through his nail wounds, but through the breaking of the bread. These disciples had probably eaten many meals with Jesus. They knew his calling card, taking bread, giving thanks, breaking it, and distributing it. Here it is again. It's classic Jesus. It's got to be him. Even when Jesus vanishes, preparing them for his future physical absence, these disciples are left with evidence that he really has risen. For one thing, freshly broken bread lies before them on the plate. More importantly, they've glimpsed the grand story of Scripture, of a dying and rising Messiah, which remains the most important testimony to Jesus' resurrection today. Now they find it impossible to doubt. Not only do they joyfully retrace their steps, but they burst into the room in Jerusalem with confidence. It's true, they tell the others. Perhaps that's something you've come to sense more deeply through your impact group this term. It's a truth with massive implications. This term, we've watched a God who eats. We've seen he's a God who's committed to his physical creation, who calls us to enjoy his world today and to long for the day he'll make it new. We've seen a God who loves to show grace, whose forgiveness and welcome is pictured and forged through meals with others. Now, we've seen he's a God that nothing and no one can stop, not even death. This means his promises are secure, his welcome is real, our hope is dependable. And that's good news that can cause our hearts to burn with great joy at Christmas time, at Easter time, throughout our time at university, and yes, into eternity.